Welcome to the second lecture on fluid properties. This is from the lecture series on fluid mechanics. In this session, we will discuss a very important fluid property known as viscosity. We will also discuss the Newton's law of viscosity and finally the classification of fluids based on Newton's law of viscosity. Now consider these two liquids, water and honey. We know that water has less resistance to flow, whereas honey has a greater resistance to flow. The difference in the flow behavior of these two liquids is essentially due to the difference in their viscosities. Now, what exactly is viscosity? Viscosity is the measure of internal fluid friction. The property viscosity is realized only when the fluid is in motion. In other words, the viscosity as a property has no role to play when the fluid is at rest. It is defined as the property of the fluid due to which it resists the relative motion of one layer of fluid over the adjacent layer. In other words, viscosity is the property by virtue of which the relative motion between adjacent layers of fluid is prevented. In order to get an expression for viscosity, we must now state what is Newton's law of viscosity. Isaac Newton established a relationship between shear stress on fluid layers and the rate of shear strain. In order to get the concept clear, let's now consider this diagram. Here we have a stationary solid surface and above which you have a fluid, say a liquid, and on top of the liquid you have a thin flat plate. Let us say it's of rectangular shape like this, having an area A. Let's now assume that that plate is being dragged along the liquid surface with a constant force F, so that the plate now acquires a uniform velocity U. Remember, below that moving plate you have the fluid. Now what will happen to the different layers of fluid beneath the moving plate? Let's now consider an important phenomena called no-slip condition that arises due to the property viscosity. In other words, no-slip condition is the consequence of the fluid property, namely viscosity. Now consider this case. The bottom solid boundary or the solid surface, that is stationary. Now consider a liquid layer which is closest to the stationary solid boundary. What will be its velocity? So that velocity will be 0. In fact, that condition is called a no-slip condition. That means the layer which is closest to the solid boundary will be having the same velocity as that of the solid boundary. Similarly, the uppermost layer of the fluid, which is in contact with the moving plate, the fluid layer closest to the moving plate, that will be having the velocity same as that of the moving plate. So what we want to highlight here is the lowermost layer is having velocity 0 and the uppermost fluid layer is having velocity U. And in between, what is happening? Now let's consider this diagram. This diagram shows the velocity distribution or velocity profile on a vertical section of flow. So if you take a vertical section over here and consider the velocity variation from bottom to the top, from the stationary solid surface to the moving upper plate, then you can see that the velocity increases from 0 at the bottommost layer, the stationary solid surface, and the velocity which the fluid layer, the topmost fluid layer acquires is same as that of the moving plate. So we say that there is a change in velocity over this vertical distance. In other words, there is a velocity gradient in the y direction. What is y direction? It is the direction normal to the flow. The flow is horizontal, that is in x direction, whereas the velocity variation is in the y direction. So the velocity gradient normal to the flow direction, now we have to find from this. For that purpose, you consider two intermediate layers, closed layers of fluid. Say one layer, see at distance small y from the bottom surface, where the velocity, let the velocity of the fluid layer be small u. And now you consider the second layer very close to it, the next layer, and that is at a distance dy from the first layer. And where the velocity is now, we know that it will be more, slightly more. So it is, let it be incremented by a quantity du. So the lower layer we considered is having velocity u, and the upper layer is u plus having velocity u plus du. And what is the change in velocity? So change in velocity is the incremental part du. That du, that incremental change in velocity, so that is over a distance dy. So therefore the velocity gradient is du by dy. Newton's law of viscosity states that the shear stress acting on a layer of fluid is directly proportional to the rate of shear strain. Rate of shear strain means the velocity gradient normal to the flow direction. Mathematically, we can write shear stress tau is proportional to du by dy. Du by dy is the velocity gradient normal to the flow direction or the rate of shear strain. It can also be called rate of shear deformation. So we can write tau is equal to a constant of proportionality into du by dy. So that constant of proportionality is mu, that represents the viscosity of the fluid. So tau is equal to mu into du by dy is the simplest form of Newton's law of viscosity, where mu is called coefficient of dynamic viscosity or coefficient of absolute viscosity or sometimes simply viscosity. Now let's consider what is the unit of viscosity. Viscosity mu is equal to tau divided by du by dy, that is shear stress divided by velocity gradient. Shear stress is measured in Newton per meter square or Pascal. Du by dy, the velocity gradient, the unit of which is meter per second divided by meter, so that is 1 by second. So if you substitute over here, shear stress tau is in Newton per meter square and du by dy in the denominator, that is in 1 by second. So on rearrangement you will get Newton second per meter square. Newton per meter square is Pascal. So therefore Newton second per meter square can also be written as Pascal second. This is the SI unit of viscosity. The other important commercial unit of viscosity is poise, usually represented by capital letter P. So it is actually CGS unit. And 1 poise is equal to 1/10 of Newton second per meter square. This conversion is important for us in solving numerical problems. The viscosity of fluids will be given in poise usually. So 1 poise is 1 by 10 Newton second per meter square. Water at 20 degrees Celsius has a dynamic viscosity equal to 1 centipoise. 1 centipoise means 1 by 100 of a poise, 0.01 poise, which in SI unit is 0.001 Newton second per meter square. Remember, viscosity varies with temperature. We are going to discuss that next. The viscosity of fluids is essentially due to two factors. One is the intermolecular force of attraction between the fluid molecules, which we call intermolecular cohesive force. And number two, the molecular momentum transfer or molecular momentum exchange because of the random motion of fluid molecules. In the case of liquids, the molecules are more closely packed than the molecules in gases. Therefore, In the case of liquids, the main reason for viscosity is the intermolecular cohesion, whereas in the case of gases, the molecular momentum transfer, that is the main reason for viscosity. So now we will analyze what will happen when temperature increases. In the case of liquids, when temperature increases, viscosity decreases, because viscosity of liquids is due to intermolecular cohesion. As temperature increases, the cohesive force decreases. Hence, viscosity of liquids decreases. Whereas in the case of gases, as temperature increases, viscosity also increases, because the viscosity of gases is predominantly due to the molecular momentum exchange. As the temperature increases, the molecular momentum transfer increases. Hence, viscosity also increases. Now, we will consider another type of viscosity called kinematic viscosity. It is denoted by nu. The Greek letter nu is equal to mu divided by rho. Kinematic viscosity is defined as the ratio of dynamic viscosity of the fluid to its mass density. Mathematically, nu is equal to mu divided by rho, and the unit of kinematic viscosity. Nu is equal to mu divided by rho, and the viscosity mu, that is dynamic viscosity mu, that has got unit Newton second per meter square in SI unit, and mass density has the unit kilogram per meter cube. So when you substitute over here, you will get Newton second meter per kg, which can be further simplified, because 1 Newton is equal to 1 kilogram meter per second square. So if you replace Newton by 1 kilogram meter per second square over here, then kilogram meter per second square into second into meter per kilogram, which can be simplified, and you will get meter square per second. So kinematic viscosity nu has the SI unit meter square per second. As in the case of dynamic viscosity mu, here also for kinematic viscosity we have a CGS unit. CGS unit of viscosity is stoke, S-T-O-K-E. It's denoted by capital letter S, and 1 stoke is 1 centimeter square per second. Therefore, if you want to convert the stoke into the SI unit of kinematic viscosity, then you can write 1 stoke is equal to 10 raised to minus 4 meter square per second, because 1 meter square per second is 10,000 centimeter square per second. So stoke is the CGS unit of kinematic viscosity, and meter square per second is the unit of SI unit of kinematic viscosity. And kinematic viscosity of water at 20 degrees Celsius is 1 centistoke. Just like we said, dynamic viscosity of water at 20 degrees Celsius is 1 centipoise. Here the kinematic viscosity of water at 20 degrees Celsius is 1 centistokes. Centistoke means 1 by 100 of a stoke. Stoke means centimeter square per second. So therefore, if you convert that into meter square per second, you will get 0.01 stoke multiplied by 10 raised to minus 4, that much meter square per second. That is 1 into 10 raised to minus 6, 1 by 1 million meter square per second. That is the kinematic viscosity of water at 20 degrees Celsius. Next, we will discuss the classification of fluids based on Newton's law of viscosity. The fluids which obey Newton's law of viscosity are known as Newtonian fluids, whereas the fluids which do not obey Newton's law of viscosity are called non-Newtonian fluids. The ordinary fluids, water, mercury, air, oils, etc., are Newtonian fluids, whereas non-Newtonian fluids, some examples are milk, paint, blood, printer's ink, polymer solutions, etc. Newton's law of viscosity states that the shear stress tau is directly proportional to the rate of shear strain du by dy, or the velocity gradient du by dy. So tau is proportional to du by dy in the case of Newtonian fluids. So what does it mean? The shear stress versus the velocity gradient, if you plot a graph, shear stress along the vertical axis, the velocity gradient along the horizontal axis, and if you plot, you will get a linear relationship, a line in the case of Newtonian fluids. So the fluids which obey Newton's law of viscosity. Whereas for non-Newtonian fluids, fluids which do not obey Newton's law of viscosity, for them you will get a non-linear graph. So that means, so you will get a non-linear curve, not a straight line. So in shear stress versus velocity gradient graph, if you draw a straight line starting from the origin, then with a positive slope, you will get Newtonian fluids, whereas if you draw a curve, a non-linear curve, then that will be non-Newtonian fluids. Throughout the course of fluid mechanics, we consider the fluids to be Newtonian fluids. That means the fluids which obey Newton's law of viscosity, and they are represented by the equation tau is equal to mu into du by dy. And we have represented the Newtonian fluids already in a shear stress versus velocity gradient graph. So you have the vertical axis representing shear stress and the horizontal axis representing the velocity gradient or rate of shear strain. And if you have a straight line with a positive slope starting from the origin, that will be representing Newtonian fluids. And any non-linear curve will be representing non-Newtonian fluids, and there are different types of non-Newtonian fluids. So we don't have one particular mathematical model that can satisfy all the fluids together, and there are many mathematical models available, and out of which the power law model to represent the non-Newtonian fluids is a prominent one, and that is expressed like this: tau, shear stress tau, is equal to m into du by dy raised to n. Here m is not the viscosity, here the m is the fluid behavior index, and this small n, that is the fluid consistency index. This is called power law model. And in this model, if we use this one and try to plot the various characteristics of various Newtonian as well as non-Newtonian fluids, then for the Newtonian, which we already know, it's a linear graph. So for dilatant fluids, we have this index n in the power law model that is greater than 1. And other type of non-Newtonian fluid is pseudoplastic, and they are also called shear thinning fluids, and the index for which is less than 1. So this is the graph representing that pseudoplastic, and this one is representing dilatant or shear thickening fluids. And if you have a straight line starting from the origin with positive slope, Newtonian fluids, in which the slope of the straight line is representing the dynamic viscosity. And here we have a very special fluid called the Bingham plastic fluid, and the ideal one is shown over here. See, ideal Bingham plastic fluid means, as you can see from the diagram, it is more or less a straight line is shown, but it is not starting from the origin like Newtonian fluids. It is starting from a point on the shear stress axis, representing that even when the velocity gradient or rate of shear strain is 0, so it is having a shear stress tau 0 represented over here, which we call yield shear stress. So that means in order to start the flow, you require a finite shear stress to be applied on such type of fluids. And in fact, we have studied in our definition that fluids are substances which undergo continuous deformation under the action of even minute shear stresses. So here, even if you apply a finite shear stress, the fluid will not start flowing. I mean, only when it reaches a finite value, a certain value of the shear stress which we call yield shear stress, it starts flowing. A common example for such a fluid is our toothpaste, and it's our common experience that the toothpaste starts to flow out of the tube when the shear stress attains a finite value, which of course you attain by squeezing the tube. So this initial shear stress is required for commencing the flow, and thereafter the flow will be more or less like the other fluids as well. And this is an ideal Bingham plastic where once the flow commences, then it shows the Newtonian character. So ideal Bingham plastic, and in fact all Bingham plastic fluids need not be like this type. Finally, let me tell you how to mark the ideal fluids and ideal solids on this rheological diagram. That is the shear stress versus velocity gradient diagram. Ideal fluids are represented by the horizontal axis itself, where the shear stress is 0, because we know that the fluids, ideal fluids, are the one which cannot sustain shear stress at all. So shear stress is equal to 0. That line represents the ideal fluids, whereas the ideal solids are represented by the vertical axis, that is the shear stress axis line. Whatever be the shear stress applied, the shear deformation is 0. So that is represented by ideal solids. And the branch of engineering science which deals with non-Newtonian fluids, that is known as rheology. In this lecture, we considered viscosity, then the Newton's law of viscosity, then the variation of viscosity of fluids with temperature, then the different types of viscosity like dynamic viscosity and kinematic viscosity, along with the SI units and the commercially used CGS units. Then classification of fluids based on the Newton's law of viscosity, the rheological diagram, and the different non-Newtonian fluids and their characteristics. Have a happy learning experience. Thank you so much.